We all know the story by now. Disabled Marine named Jake Sully travels with the Na'vi, fights the humans, saves the planet, and becomes Torak Makto. Boom, hero of the story, right? But what if we've been misled? What if we've been watching this movie from Jake's point of view and we've gotten it wrong for over a decade? What if Jake Sully isn't the chosen savior, but actually the biggest traitor in Avatar? Now, stick with me, because by the end of this video, you might never see Pandora or Jake the same way again. On the surface, Jake looks like a classic sci-fi hero, the outsider who joins the oppressed groups and helps them rise above. But that's the exact problem. Jake doesn't empower the Na'vi. He tries to replace them. He becomes the chosen one in a culture he doesn't belong to, mastering their traditions faster than they do, flying their most sacred creatures, and eventually leading their entire planet to the brink of war. Jake doesn't uplift the Na'vi. He centers himself in their story. He's not the hero. He's a traitor that's using cultural appropriation for his own personal redemption. Before Jake switches sides, he spends half the movie giving humans military intelligence about the Na'vi. And not accidentally. This was all strategic. He maps their structures, he identifies their weakness, he feeds data directly to Quaritch and the RDA. The very information that destroys the Na'vi's home tree. That was all the doing of Jake. Sure, he flips later on, but only after he becomes obsessed with Neytiri and the Na'vi lifestyle. His loyalty shifts not because humanity is wrong, but because he personally wants something more. That's not morality, guys. That's not morality. That's opportunism. Jake enters Pandora with a body he didn't earn in a culture built over thousands of years. He becomes almost instantly more physically capable than the Na'vi, who spent their whole lives training. Imagine showing up to a sport you've never played and you're immediately better than the lifelong professionals. That's Jake and his avatar. His quick mastery of Navi's skills isn't a miracle, it's cheating. And the Na'vi mistake his engineered advantages for spiritual destiny. Jake doesn't correct him, he leans into it. Now, let's talk about Torak Makto, a title reserved for only 5 Na'vi in their entire history. That title is sacred, legendary, and some would say nearly mythical. And Jake, does he care? No. He decides to take it. Not only because the Na'vi ask him, not because Iwa demands it of him, but because he thinks it'll earn his trust back after his betrayal. This is all done for personal gain. He becomes their military leader, their symbol, and ultimately their ruler. But play it back again. Jake goes from outsider to traitor to cultural icon. All in the span of a few months. That's not heroism. That's a hostile takeover. Just spiritualized. Before Jake arrived, the Na'vi were surviving, not thriving under the RDA, but just surviving and living, maintaining their culture and negotiating conflict in their own way. But once Jake enters the picture, there is nothing but death and destruction and full-scale war. He triggers the event leading to the home tree's fall. He unites the clan, but only after the damage is done. He escalates the conflict to planetary disaster instead of letting the Na'vi manage their own resistance. The Na'vi win the battle, but only after taking heavy losses, only after losing sacred sites, and only after losing almost their entire species. Jake wasn't the solution. He was the catalyst of their destruction. You may argue, but the humans were evil. Sure, RDA absolutely was. But Jake abandons all of humanity, not just the RDA. He doesn't warn Earth about what's going on in Na'vi lands. He doesn't try to negotiate with the Na'vi to at least have some sort of agreement between the humans and the Na'vi. He doesn't push for diplomacy. He doesn't share any of his knowledge with the Na'vi until it's too late. He just fully switches sides and switches bodies permanently. A human soldier abandoning his species and choosing to live as Na'vi is essentially saying, my story matters more than the fate of the two worlds. That's not noble. It's selfish escapism at its finest. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Jake's story is still the story of someone who arrives uninvited, leverages his privilege, rises to power within another culture, and becomes their central figure in the revolution. Even though he fights on the right side, his presence overshadows native voices, traditions, and leadership. Jake isn't destroying colonization, he's reframing it with himself on top. So, is Jake the hero? If you're blind, maybe. But is he the villain? Absolutely. Jake Sully is the most dangerous kind of antagonist. The one who thinks he's the savior. The one who causes harm while believing he's doing good. The one who rewrites a culture, then calls it destiny. If you made it this far, tell me in the comments, is Jake Sully a hero, a villain, a traitor, or maybe something in between? And if you want a part 2 of this breakdown, or a breakdown on any other character in Avatar, let me know. It's been your boy AE, and this is me signing out.